on an all-new Dr. Phil.
At night, you bind your hands and feet. What is your fear?
That I might hurt somebody.
Her OCD.
If I were to touch your arm,
Can you sanitize your hands first?
Has taken over her life.
can you kind of hold my arm up?
I don't want to touch you.
You have 4 pens and 4 hand sanitizers.
I just feel more comfortable if things are enforced.
If I took one of each away,
I'd have to leave the stage.
let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by, Dr. Phil.
I try to be an emotional compass and point you in the right direction.
In 5, 4.
I am not giving up on you.
Go, Dr. Phil.
How you doing? Good. How are you? How are you? You know, you often hear people joke around and say, I am so OCD. Right? Well, if you think about it, a lot of people believe they have some form of ritualistic behavior, some rigidity. Some call it a habit, some call it a compulsion, some call it a superstition. Even I have something I do before every show. I touch this giant electrical outlet that is right outside my office. I do it every morning on the way to the studio for good luck. I was curious to see if anybody else has a secret ritual or habit, so we asked our audience today. And yeah, we got some answers. Alan, where are you? Alan, you wash your hands how many times a day?
50 times.
50 times a day. All right. Denise, you step off of a curb how?
With my left foot.
Every time.
When I'm running, I have to step off the curb with my left foot and back on the curb with my left foot.
Every time. For some, OCD can become more than just a nuance. It can become very debilitating. My guest today is a mother of 2 young girls who says she has become trapped in her own mind. She has to cuff her hands and feet and wear a mask over her mouth and sleep on the floor while her husband is sleeping in bed. Now, her friends and family have no idea about her secret life full of rituals and daily checklists and numbers, especially the number 18. I have a copy of her book here. What does it all mean? Laura tried to explain it to us in a home video. Take a look.
I had this sudden fear that I might hurt somebody in the night, so I made makeshift handcuffs. Also, I had to sleep with this mask on. Time for detox. Coffee again. As I'm doing the detox, I'll repeat it in my head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or tell me like 4 times. I'm worried tonight that there's germs in my hair, so I'm going to soak it in this coconut oil. I touched some Bibles today, and I'm not sure if I was clean enough. Afraid that maybe I might have had a blasphemous thought. Terrible mother, and terrible wife, and just a terrible person.
Well, Laura's husband, Brian, says he had a happy marriage and family, but then after the birth of his 2nd daughter 6 years ago, Laura started doing strange things like what we just saw. Well, she was diagnosed with OCD in January of 2014. Brian says he knows his marriage is in sickness and in health, but Laura's disease is making him think about divorce. And he says, you know, frankly, I feel awful about it, but it's the truth.
When I first met Laura, we just hit it off. Laura seemed like a normal girl. I loved her. Our marriage now isn't a marriage. It's been a long time since we've had sex.
That's our bed. That's where I sleep. That's where she sleeps.
She typically wears a surgical mask, binds her hands together, and recently her feet as well, which scares me. I have no idea why she's doing that.
What if I develop some sort of a sleep disorder where I hurt people or do things in my sleep and I don't remember them in the morning? I can't tolerate sex because of my fear of bodily fluids and my fear of contaminating him. We can't even hold hands at this point. Whenever I have intrusive thoughts about sex or or say the word, I have to tap my knee 4 times to cancel it. It'll neutralize those thoughts.
When we had the conversation about divorcing, she basically told me, if you leave me, you're letting me die. When you say for better or for worse, you don't usually think about the worst. I can't really see myself with another woman, but I also can't see myself not being intimate for the rest of my life.
Laura was determined to travel to Los Angeles to meet me and get help, not only for herself, but for her family. She made it here, but in order for us to interview Laura, she had a list of requirements. Take a look.
In order to be able to talk to you guys today, I had to make several requests. I asked to make sure everyone took off their watches and that there were no clocks in the room. I had to have pen and paper beside me, so if I needed to write number 4 or 18, that I could. I requested a white mug because I only drink from white mugs, and I requested the water in glass bottles as well. If I don't have these things, I can't function. I have a huge fear of people laughing at me, thinking I'm crazy. I'm pretty self-conscious about my disorder.
Well, Laura got what she needed, and we sat down to do the interview, but it seemed like her OCD did most of the talking.
I struggled with these issues for a long time before I was officially diagnosed. I just sprayed my hands because I've been touching things around here, and I get worried about picking up the germs. My life before OCD was a lot different. I was very successful. I was pretty social, confident, good self-esteem, funny, laid back. But since the OCD, that's kind of all gone away. I need a drink. I just need someone to open it. I'm looking for this measuring spoon because I drink the water in 4-ounce increments. I just measure the water, like... I knew I needed that spoon or I wasn't going to be able to drink the water. The OCD's really affected my family life, and I feel really guilty and like I'm a horrible mother and wife because of it. And I worry a lot about how it's affected Brian. Like, I know he's more stressed, I'm more tired. Like, he's pretty much carrying the workload of 2 parents right now. I feel like I'm having a lot of intrusive thoughts and that I just need to take some supplements and do some detox. I tapped the top of the door once as I walked through with my right hand. That's how I have to move from room to room now. When I left the bathroom, I had to tap each 4 corners of the light switch near the door. It just brought my anxiety down to a place where I feel like I can focus again. I'm ashamed of what the disorder has made me become.
All right, Brian, Laura, I'm glad you're here. How do you feel about being here?
Really nervous. It's way out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. But why be here? If it's so far out of your comfort zone, why be here?
Because the disorder is destroying my family and my husband and myself. And I'm afraid it's going to kill me, and I just want to get help.
So you want to fight through this. Mm-hmm. What's the significance of what you've brought here? I see 4, looks like fountain pens, and 4, what are these little short things?
Hand sanitizer. Hand
sanitizers, okay. You have 4 pens and 4 hand sanitizers. What's the significance of 4 of each of these?
I just feel more comfortable if things are in 4s. It brings my anxiety down just a little bit.
Mm-hmm. If I took 1 of each away, would that be troubling to you?
I'd have to leave the stage.
What would you say to yourself in your mind if I took 1 of each away?
Something bad's going to happen.
Is there a significance in the number 4 for you?
It's easy divisible. I can multiply easy. I can do 4 times 2 for like a cup of water, for example.
And are you okay with me asking you these questions?
I'll have to tap when you do it.
Okay, well, that's okay.
Yeah,
but
fine.
Other than that, you're okay with me asking you? Okay, how many fingers do you have on your hand?
4 plus 1.
Why do you answer 4 plus 1 instead of 5?
Because I can't say that number. It has to be 4 and something.
Okay, you don't like that number.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that at night you bind your hands and feet. You do that because you fear you might do something in the night. What is your fear that you might do?
That I might hurt somebody.
Have you played out what that something might be?
Hurting my kids or my husband mostly.
In a conscious waking state, you don't have any resentment, bitterness, anger, any desire to hurt either your husband or your children.
I wouldn't hurt anybody.
Well, coming up, Laura has a list of 91 fears and rituals. We're going to find out why her list even includes a fear of pregnant women. We'll be right back. You touched a Bible and you thought you weren't clean enough.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil, a disturbed child.
Bleeder is the robot that lives on his head.
Rylan says Bleeder has told him to kill his entire family.
Are the parents overreacting?
You said he cut his fingertips off. I don't see blood.
Over-medicating?
Whenever he does act up, they sedate him. That's not true.
Or just in over their heads?
Walk a mile in our shoes and you can't handle them either.
I'll kill you. I'll definitely kill you.
That's tomorrow.
Laura has a lot of sensitivities to sound.
Right now what I'm doing is writing the numbers because the sounds in this room are really bothering me.
When I eat potato chips, I go in another room because I know she's going to be bothered by it. When the cat meows, it just drives her up the wall. She has threatened the cat, and he's just trying to eat.
I'll put these headphones in and then play music so I don't have to hear anything around me. I'll pull this over just to secure them in, and it makes it more tight, like in my ear, so it's a better seal. It's almost like I can't hear or think about anything around me.
I've said we're here for a couple of reasons. One is I want to help you with your OCD, and you're seeing a therapist right now, and from what I understand, a very capable therapist that's very devoted to helping you. So certainly I hope you continue with that. You've been through a lot of medications. Nothing has seemed to help.
Everything makes me worse.
Do you agree the meds have not helped?
Yeah, I mean, most of them, I've seen her just dip into a real depressive state.
What are the things that seem to be most upsetting to you, most disruptive to you? Noise is a big thing, right? And you have a long list of fears. What are the things that bother you the most? What are the biggest fears that you have to go through rituals to reduce your anxiety or fear of?
I'm like afraid of toxins, afraid that there's toxins in my body. That's like a huge one.
So you have a fear of deodorants, particularly with aerosols, foods that come in contact with aluminum foil, right? Why is that?
Afraid of metal toxicity.
Okay, just the metals that might transfer to the foods. Aerosol sprays, chemically scented candles, air fresheners, dryer sheets, non-natural soaps, fresh painted rooms, herbicides, pesticides, so a lot of chemicals, right?
Yeah.
Tell me what you're writing down right now.
The number 4.
Okay, and you're writing the number 4, let me guess, you're writing it 4 times.
In rows of 4, yeah.
You're writing rows of 4, and you're writing it 4 times. Did my mentioning the things that you fear trigger your need to have an anxiety reduction? So just not coming in contact with them, but just the verbal representation of them caused an increase in anxiety. And so an anxiety release is to do...
Write the number 4.
Why are you afraid of pregnant women?
It's the effect of me being around the baby or the pregnant woman.
Like what? How do you fill that blank in?
Because I've had a few friends that I've been close to, and they've been pregnant, and their babies have died or been born with like a birth defect.
And you decided that
Must have been something I did.
There's something you did. And it's interesting that you would think that you're that powerful even in your sickness. Intellectually, do you know that that's unlikely? But yet emotionally, you still feel that tremendous power of guilt. Do you have any intrusive thoughts that really scare you? You said, for example, you touched a Bible and you thought you weren't clean enough.
Yeah.
You know, that's holding yourself to a pretty high standard, right? The suggestion of not being clean enough is the first time you've picked up the hand sanitizer to clean your hands. Do you find yourself highly suggestible? Because you've written down series of 4s 12 times, so 3 multiples of 4, 12 times, but you hadn't cleaned your hands until I asked you if you were clean enough.
Yeah.
And I just asked you again, and you cleaned it again. Before the break, we took a poll on our website asking if you believe that your spouse concealed a mental illness before you married, would that be grounds for divorce? We'll get the results of that later in the show. And I would like to ask our Twitter and Facebook viewers if they consider themselves to have any OCD-type behaviors or superstitions, and if so, what they are. You can tell us by using hashtag Dr. Phil, hashtag married to OCD. Coming up, Laura says she does 4 coffee detoxes a day. She's going to tell us about those and if they work, if they reduce the anxiety and tension when we come back.
There's a long list of things that I'm afraid of. The OCD makes me have a fear of electric blankets, electric razors, electric toothbrushes, chemicals and toxins and pesticides, herbicides. I'm just afraid that it's going to affect my liver.
Laura has several detoxing rituals she goes through. One of them is a coffee enema. She averages probably about 3 times a day. She has to do it, otherwise her anxiety level goes through the roof.
Time for detox. Coffee again. I know the coffee detox probably isn't good for me. It's torture for me every day, and it takes up a lot of my time. I know all of it's irrational, but I just feel like I have to do it.
You know, I'm worried for her. I know that it's something that can't be good for her. It seems dangerous to me.
You've been very open and forthcoming with us, which again is a really great sign for me. You shared with us one of your notebooks that you took, and I was kind of going through the notebook, and buried pretty deep in the notebook, I found a page that you have drawn in the pattern of a ribbon, and it's the word failure. What were you thinking when you did this?
That no matter what I do to try to stop this, I fail. And that I'm failing as a mother and a wife and a daughter, and I fail at everything I do.
And on the very next page, you have the pattern of 4s, and then the word 4, and then 18s, 18s, 18s. And when you perform this ritual, does it help you? You get a reduction of anxiety?
I mean, it doesn't take the anxiety down that much. Maybe 10% or so. maybe.
What triggered you to write your 4s just now?
Because I said a number that wasn't 18 or 4, a multiple of 18 or 4.
When was the last time you felt what you would consider to be relaxed?
I don't even remember.
Could you try an experiment for me? Would you do that? And if I were to touch your arm, but on your sweater, not your hands or anything, would that be okay?
Can you sanitize your hands first?
Sure. You want to do it? You want to squirt me?
Yeah.
I do this all the time, actually, because I'm around people all the time. I don't want to get a cold. Okay. Good? Okay, let's stand up. Okay, here's what I'd like for you to do. I want you to put your arms out straight like this. Stand in front of me a little bit. Okay, and I've got your arm right here, okay? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to count to 3, and you're holding your arm out now. When I count to 3, I want you to completely relax your arm. 1, 2, 3. Okay? All right, how'd you do?
Not good.
Not good. All right, you want me to try it? Okay. Can you kind of hold my arm up?
I don't want to touch you.
Okay, that's all right.
Can you count to 4 instead of 3?
Sure, would that help? Mm-hmm. You count to 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, now, you. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, how'd you do?
Not as good as you.
A little bit? Okay, all right, you can sit back down. So Brian, my point here is she has an absolute inability to remove tension. And how long has it been since you've taken a deep breath?
I don't remember that either.
I'm going to ask you to breathe in to the count of 4. I'm going to ask you to breathe out to the count of 4. Here's how we're going to do it. Watch me. Okay? Deep breath, mouth open. Here we go. Go. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4. In. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4. In. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. If you can condition yourself to do that, you would be astounded how much relaxation you can bring to your body. When we come back, Laura says she's hidden a lot from her parents. Well, it's time for them to understand what's really going on. It's time for everybody here to understand what's going on. Is this a mental illness or is it not? You're getting ready to find out some things that you don't know about OCD when we come back.
I've tried to reach out to my parents to explain my OCD, but I get scared, so I hold back a lot. If they're at my house, I have to wait till they go to bed to be able to do the compulsions.
Our parents say, well, why don't you just stop doing it? It's not going to help to just say, just snap out of it.
Wednesday on an all-new Dr. Phil.
Your son, left to his own devices, will be dead inside a week.
Nick Gordon.
I miss Chrissy and Whitney so much. I want them back.
The exclusive interview.
I hate Bobby Brown.
We've been drinking a lot, though, right?
That turns...
Get to the point. I'm getting frustrated.
...into an intervention.
I want you to go straight to rehab.
I'm done with the interview. I'm done. I'm done.
That's Wednesday.
Laura says her parents, Denise and Larry, have no idea how bad her OCD has gotten because she hides it from them. Take a look.
I noticed that Laura lost a lot of weight after the birth of her second child.
She was just skin and bones. It was just dreadful.
I knew for sure that she had an eating disorder.
I asked Brian if he could keep in touch with us because we had no idea what was going on.
It's a little bit awkward to talk about Laura's health. Laura becomes anxious if I ask her too many questions. I feel that Laura's marriage is intact. They seem like they're in love with each other and that they care a great deal for each other. I'm selective about what I say to Laura and what I say to Brian because I don't want it to ever seem like I'm trying to dig for information.
We're just concerned parents. We want to know what's going on.
Okay, thank you for being here and joining us. This is much more advanced than I think you have been aware of. Would that be an accurate statement?
We heard things today that I couldn't have dreamed that was happening.
Tell me what your thoughts, feelings, and reactions are to where we are at this point.
I'm just so sorry, and I feel I've missed the boat.
I'm very proud of your strength to get here. I also feel kind of sad that you weren't able to share that with us so we could be more of a part of your life.
I just don't want to hurt you guys, so I try to not talk about it a lot. And I don't want you guys worrying, so I try not to make you worry.
But you fear judgment from them.
I feel judgment from about everybody.
Do you guys think you have a fair and clear understanding about OCD?
I feel a lot of confusion. What is really wrong with my daughter, and how can I help her?
I want to give you at least a definition of it, and then we're going to take a break, and I'm going to come back and explain more about it. But it's characterized by obsessive, and that's persistent and intrusive thoughts. And people don't often think about this, but obsessive refers to thought and compulsive refers to behavior. So obsessive, persistent, and intrusive thoughts and compulsive, repetitive behaviors. And these are time-consuming. And diagnostically say at least an hour a day, and certainly I've heard it's like all day, every day. They're time-consuming, or they cause significant distress and impairment, and that certainly is the case here. They may involve dysfunctional beliefs, and they're talking about an inflated sense of responsibility. Like, for example, she's afraid about pregnant women because some have lost their babies, and she has an inflated sense of responsibility that it was like her fault. Overestimating threat. She feels like she may wake up in the middle of the night and hurt someone, so she binds herself. Overestimating threat. Overestimating threat of foods and germs and even going outside or touching certain things. Perfectionism, intolerance, and overimportance of thoughts, that if she thinks something bad that it could happen. I mean, all of those things. So you would say you're kind of all over that definition, wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. You're just kind of all over that. Now, there are some other things that go along with that, and these things don't often happen in isolation. The question is, where does this come from, right? Is this something she can just gut up and walk through, or does it come from somewhere else? Next, Brian wonders if Laura's health would be better if he just wasn't around. And he also wonders if his children would be better if they weren't exposed to someone with this disorder, and if she would be better if she didn't have children to contend with. So the question is, in order for her to get better, should he take the children and be gone? In order for the children to grow up healthy, would they be better if they weren't around her? What do you do with all of this? Well, we're going to talk about all of that when we come back.
5'4.5". I'm probably between 85 and 90 pounds. My oldest daughter said that I was skinny and how cool it was. I'm worried that she'll think that being skinny is something that you should strive for.
They're obviously seeing her anxiety. I'm worried that they're starting to mimic that because it hangs over the house.
I try to do everything I can to be a good mom because I just love them.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil, a disturbed 7-year-old.
I'll definitely kill you.
And 2 distraught parents.
You have no doubt that your son is going to kill someone in your family.
No.
That's tomorrow.
Part of why we've hit rock bottom is because I've lost hope. We've taken these vows of sickness and health, and I want to stick with her, but it's difficult when there basically is no marriage.
I'm afraid he's going to leave me, which increases my compulsions. But because of the OCD, I feel like I have to do more compulsions, and maybe I can save it.
Considering that I would possibly have to divorce Laura makes me feel terrible. I just want to know if my marriage can be saved.
Well, I don't want to bury the lead because I want to tell you the answer to that question is yes. And I have to tell you that there's a lot that we don't know about OCD, and there's debate about whether we should refer to this as a mental illness or a brain disorder, actually, and there are features of both. I want to introduce a colleague of mine. This is Dr. Charles Sophy. Dr. Sophy is an eminent psychiatrist. He is well-versed in brain function, brain chemistry, and the role of neurology and neurotransmitters, particularly with regard to this kind of disorder. Dr. Sophy, would you come up for a minute here, if you would? Okay, now, Dr. Sophy, let me get us anchored here. In a regular brain, in everybody's brain, we have thoughts that originate here in the orbitofrontal cortex, right?
Correct.
That's normal. That happens with everybody.
Everybody.
All right, and then that thought messages with neurotransmitters that go sending the messages into the internal part of the brain.
Yes.
But what goes wrong with the OCD brain?
Well, the OCD brain at this point should have a filter, because this orange section should filter out thoughts that don't need to get in.
Right.
But OCD brains have a filter that's got holes in it, and they all get through.
Okay, so we get things in here that shouldn't get through. Give me an example.
So, like, we pick up dirt, a normal thought, we feel dirty, we feel it, and we act on it, and we clean our hands. But if you touch something that's not really that dirty, the filter should say, it's not that important, don't wash your hands.
All right, but with an OCD patient, they don't filter that out.
Right.
The threshold's not there, so
Correct.
it gets in.
Right.
Okay, and when it gets through, some of these things get stuck in here.
Yes.
And now we get in kind of a racetrack pattern, and that's why they get into this repetitive behavior, right?
It's obsessive.
It just keeps going over and over and over again.
Yes, obsessive thoughts and compulsive behaviors.
Okay. Now, what are these neurotransmitters that we're talking about that are sending these messages here? These are chemicals, right?
Right. These are chemicals in your brain that go back and forth within the fluid of your brain to make an electrical shock to go and make the movement. So you're talking serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine, epinephrine, all different
if a
kinds.
parent is expecting their child, like, hey, come on, you just got to bear down and get over this. This is not voluntary.
Correct. You can't fix this just by manning up and overthinking it.
So when people say OCD is not necessarily a psychological disorder, that sometimes they talk about it as a brain disorder or a neurological disorder, this is what we're talking about.
Totally.
All right, fair enough. Okay. The good news is there are ways to improve this. The bad news is when this happens, lots of things start to happen. Anxiety builds, and you start trying to figure out ways to alleviate the anxiety. And if you're having anxiety, panic attacks, I mean, you'll hop on one foot and tap your ear. If it helps, you'll do whatever, right? And there are a very specialized group of medications, SSRIs, that properly used, can help this, correct? Talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. Because as Dr. Phil said, the chemicals that are not stopping and flowing is serotonin. In other parts of the brain, there's other chemicals, but serotonin is your key chemical that's not flowing right. And so the medications prevent the serotonin from going places it shouldn't and makes it go where it should and stay longer where it should.
It's selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors that it has to be very dialed in. It's a very specialized sort of thing, but it can be great help. And there are other things that you can do that are not medication-based, some things that you can do at home, some things you can do therapeutically that can really help to get this under control. So there is help for this. I love that you're supportive. You need to take your house back. And you don't need to live like this anymore either. I love that you're supportive. I love that you're there for her. I love that you have been such a soldier. You need to take your house back. You need to take your house back. Look, you need to recognize and acknowledge that this is a disorder here, obsessive-compulsive disorder, if that is what we're dealing with. But you have to acknowledge that there is a disorder here. You need to acknowledge small victories on her part, like coming here. Give yourself that. You got to acknowledge that. You need to require of her and you of yourself your highest level of functioning possible every day. You can't get in a comfort zone. You can't let yourself digress to a comfort zone. And you need to avoid day-to-day comparisons like, you know, yeah, you did better yesterday. What are you, backsliding here? Every day's different. Come on. And you need to come from knowledge. Like, I hate that you've kept them in the dark and that you've learned some things today, right, about where she is, that this is neurological. Listen, I've given you we've reduced this to some very simple images so you can understand this without going to sleep, because trust me, it gets very detailed. But I think we've given you a very macro explanation that the communication between where thoughts originate and deeper structures where you act on those things, that communication has been disrupted and it needs to be fixed. That's the macro level. That means this is not mental illness, this is neurological. You need to set limits, but be sensitive. And that's what I mean about taking the house back. You have to support compliance. When we come up with a therapeutic regimen, you got to do it. I mean, you just have to do it. And you need to keep communications clear and simple about this. And you need to be tolerant, but at the same time, you have to recognize that you have to be tolerant of uncertainty. You say, well, what if the door is not locked? You have to learn to tolerate uncertainty. You do need to have some separate time where you can be alone. But you need to limit discussion of OCD. You need to have time where the two of you don't talk about your disorder. You need to have time with the children where you don't talk about your rituals. You need to put boundaries around this. If you want to talk about this for an hour between 10 and 11 at night, then fine. But you set boundaries around the rest of it. You need to require normal windows of interaction here. And you need to have normal activities within the family. The children, they need to bring friends over. And you just don't want to succumb to your pattern. And you two need to negotiate a contract. This is something that you want to do with her, not to her. Because you can't rebel if you agree. I mean, you have to work this out and negotiate these things so you can do it. Do you need to get a divorce? No. You don't need to get a divorce, and you don't need to live like this anymore either. We need to treat this. Is this bothering you?
A little bit.
I believe that even through all of the distortion, I have this strong belief that people know the truth when they hear it. Look at me. Am I telling you the truth? Do you hearing the truth coming from me? You know I'm right. And can you do this? And I'm going to bring you some help. We're going to help your therapist help you. We're going to get you neurological help. We're going to get this thing turned around. Okay? And these folks love you. They understand it. They're going to come from a place of knowledge and understanding. And you won the husband lottery with this guy right here. You won the husband lottery. Earlier I asked, if you believe that your spouse concealed a mental illness before you married, is that grounds for divorce? And the results are very close. 53% said yes, 47% said no. It was just an interesting question that we had. She did not deceive here. She did not hide a mental illness. It was just a question that came up because of a lot of letters that we had. How do you feel about what I'm saying to you?
I'm nervous, but I trust you.
Do you trust you to work through this? Can we do this together? If we put a team around you, can we do this?
We have the right team, yeah.
Isn't it time? It's time. Can we do this? Okay. I want to thank Dr. Charles Sophie and all of my guests today. And for more information about today's show, log on to drphil.com. And by the way, if you'll go to the website, I'm going to have more complete descriptions of OCD, OCD personality, phobias, anxiety. We use abbreviated definitions here on the show because of this time. Full discussion will be on the website if you're interested in that for accuracy. Thank you so much for being here. So long. We'll get this working. Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys.